While we sleep, the guardians of the night take to the streets, having said goodbye to those they love. Each other knowing they may never say these words again. They face the evil that we run from. They dedicate their lives to those that would hate them because they wear the badge. They wear the badge not for the glory or recognition, but because they were born to honor the thin blue line. This is the LEO First Podcast. We'll talk to the men and women in law enforcement, those that have retired, and anyone who's impacted by law enforcement. We'll peel back the curtain, and you'll get the real stories. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Every law enforcement officer has a story to tell. Get ready to hear from the men and women who put their lives on the line every day for their communities and their country. Welcome to the LEO First Podcast. Now, here's your host, Michael Laidler.
Hey everybody, it's Michael Laidler, your host of the LEO First Podcast, and we're coming back to you with another amazing guest. I met this person through social media and at an event, and when he was interested on being on the show, I was like, you know what? Of course. My name's Mike. His name's Mike. Why don't we just have a whole Mike party? So as I was building the show and we were talking before we started, I was telling him how organic our conversations tend to be on the show. And for all my guests, returning guests that I've heard, you all know that I try not to have too strict of a questioning line outside of 3 basic questions to tell me a little bit about you, where can we find you, and any final words. Outside of those, you all know that whatever happens on the show happens on the show. But ultimately, the show is always about humanizing the badge and showing that each and every one of us in and outside of a uniform are people. And we have things going on. We have goals. We have dreams. We have stressors. And it's no different from anybody else, but it's good to understand that we have people around us that are fighting the good fight and pushing forward. Now, like I said, our guest, you already know his name, and if you're watching the Zoom video, you probably see it at the bottom left, but our guest for today is Mike Slocum, and Mike has now, I'm looking at my LinkedIn to make sure you guys, he's going on 23 years in law enforcement. He has a lot of stuff that he's active in right now, or at least that's what his LinkedIn says. He's on the Auburn Criminal Justice and Security Board. He is a Ohio instructor. He is also, and I think this is probably one of the biggest projects that he's probably going to want to talk about today. He's on Freedom Frontline, and through some of the things that he has done with the FBI National Academy, he just graduated back in March based on what it says. I think you guys will enjoy just the preparation. I mean, he has a master's degree in public administration. He has a lot of stuff going on, which is so amazing. But as we always know, each one of the guests that come on, we're always striving to push each one of us to get better. And I know with just what Mike and I talked about earlier, that you all will be in for a treat. Now, my rambling has gone on enough, and you guys know I love to ramble, and gals, but I don't want to take any more time away from Mike because, I have started doing shorter episodes to hopefully increase viewership and allow great people like Mike to be seen and heard. So I will end my part there. Mike, what do you want us to know? What do you want to talk about today?
First of all, Mike, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It's been nice connecting with you. As you know, I met you in person in San Antonio at the FBI LEDA conference, and you had a great presentation on greatness behind the badge, your 3 key principles for self-awareness. But we'll get into that. Just for the audience, just kind of qualify myself. I'm just a regular Joe. I come from a law enforcement family. My dad's retired sergeant from Ashtabula County Sheriff's Department here in Northeast Ohio. He's still doing the job, though. He's a school resource officer.
Wow.
But he's retired from the road. So I grew up in a law enforcement family and went to Youngstown State, got my bachelor's, got hired at the Painesville Police Department, also here in Northeast Ohio back in 2001. And fast forward here, we're in 2024 now. So almost 23 years this November on the job. I've done a little bit of everything. Really, I started out as a community service officer, went into patrol, did the FTO honor guard thing, got on the Lake County Sheriff's Regional SWAT team, Eventually became the less than lethal team leader there. I put 14 years in on the team. That was a great experience. Got promoted to sergeant in 2012. In 2014, got promoted to lieutenant. And there I rest currently. We're a small 40-man department, full-time sworn, which is your traditional American police department, really.
It is.
So, I've always, I went back and got my master's degree from Cleveland State University for public administration. And then I went to the National Academy, which was really awesome experience. Class 289 here, January through March. So, I've been on the path for a while, on the march for a while. So, that's kind of me, really, which is most of us probably listening in the audience as far as your career trajectory goes. What do I want to talk about today? So when you were talking at the FBI LEDA conference, I was taking notes because that's what I do. And you talked about the journey outlined. You talked about the discovery. And you said failure. And so I wrote that down. And we later heard Marcus Luttrell. Everybody knows the lone survivor, Marcus Luttrell. We heard him after you. Of course, I took notes from him as well. And he talked about three things: receive, reflect, respond. So here I got Michael Laidler talking about the journey outlined, which is the discovery, the purpose, and the path to greatness. And then I hear Marcus Luttrell. He's talking about receiving, reflecting, and responding. And I'm thinking about my own journey. And I'm thinking about things that you said, and it really resonated with me. You talked about finding harmony with job, family, relaxation, personal growth. And, that reminded me a better me plus a better you equals a better us, which came from Next Jump, which is a study or a company that we studied at the FBI National Academy for Emotional Intelligence. And I'm just sitting there and I'm thinking about all this stuff, and I'm like, man, this is great stuff. And it just resonates with my journey, with my discovery. So if you're good with it, we'll get into that.
Yeah. I will say for like I said, if you guys get a chance to watch the video, well, let me say, if I get a chance to edit the video, you guys will definitely hear the recording. One of the things that Mike mentioned or didn't mention, I didn't mention as well, he does have a YouTube channel. And the cool part about it is that if you guys can see on the screen right now, he has this amazing setup. Like, I saw his microphone and everything else. I was like thinking in my head, man, this is guy, he must have been on 1,000 podcasts. And then you know what he told me? He said he just got that thing. And I was like, Mike, you could have fooled me with that. But I will tell you guys, that's the kind of serious, that's the person we have on right now, is that he wanted to do so well for this audience. And he wanted to do so well to showcase what he's doing in law enforcement. He went out and invested in himself and got a mic. And I told him my mic, it's an Audio-Technica. I think I've had it since 2018 or so. And it was an investment that I was like, man, I don't want to spend $150, $200 on. But it's been life-changing because I do so many podcasts. And we all know when it comes to podcasting, especially when it's audio only, the only thing you have is what people can hear. So you want to give people the best quality. And Mike has also transitioned that to his life. He wants to give the best quality. So the reason why I say all that, I know you guys thought I was going down some rabbit hole, but when you want to be the best that you are, you have to invest in yourself. And that's what Mike did. And that's why I wanted to highlight the microphone that he had, because there's been other podcasts I've been on, and it's been me as well, where I've had to use my AirPods or I've had to use like my wired headphones, and the quality of the audio is just different. It's not horrible, but there's like, in my mind, and I don't know if this is a study, there's probably at least a 5 times difference in having a wired like standalone microphone versus maybe having the AirPods or the Beats or whatever that might be. So needless to say, I know Mike's going to talk about the discovery and kind of where he's going, but I want you all to understand how important it is to invest in yourself and get equipment, not just physical, but mental equipment as well, because when you're ready to display things and have an output, that's how you do it.
Yeah, Mike, I couldn't agree more. Anything worth doing is worth doing right, worth doing well, and putting your best foot forward. So, I want to talk about something that really we're all feeling in the law enforcement profession, and listening to you, Mike, I've heard this, right? So we have we have high expectations of us as law enforcement officers, and we work in really challenging conditions. And sometimes we lack the necessary tools to deal with these obstacles and challenges. So I'm just going to start out by saying that the job's hard enough as it is, and then we run into obstacles or critical times in our lives that really there's no manual or script for how to deal with them. And so for me, my discovery started on April 1st of 2019. I got married to my beautiful wife, Allison, in 2015. And so here we are, April 1st of 2019. It's April Fool's Day, of course. And she comes in the bedroom and she says, "Hey, Mike, we're pregnant." And we hadn't had any children, right? So, this is pretty exciting news, but I'm skeptical being the law enforcement officer that I am. I'm like,
that's one way to put it. That's one way to put it.
Nice try, right? So she shows me the stick and I'm like, okay, yeah. So I'm like, "You serious?" And she's like, "Yeah." So there we are, we're super excited. So we got some great news on April 1st of 2019 there. And so I'm at work, 3 days later, it's April 4th. My wife calls me at work and she says, she goes, "I need you to come home." And I said, "What's going on?" And she says, "Well, our dog at the time, I think he was about 8 years old. He was a boxer named Bohica. And he'd been having some seizures and stuff. And I guess he had a really bad one. She's like, "Today's the day. We got to put him down. He's still having it. I need you to come home." So I leave work, on the ride home from work, I'm thinking, the Lord giveth and he taketh away. We're going to get this child. This is going to be our first child. But I got to put the dog down. He's going to take the dog. So I did my household duties and took the dog to the vet and had him laid to rest. And I don't care what anybody says. Dogs are part of the family.
Of course.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So a couple of weeks goes by and we're getting ready to be parents and everything. And I go into work on April 26th here. And I find out that one of our guys, he's 54 years old, John Tycote, he's been rushed to the emergency room, apparent heart attack. And we would find out probably within 10 minutes or so that he didn't make it. He had a massive heart attack. 54 years old, and it was not fair. But the guy just retired, and he got his first retirement paycheck, and he was going to come back and work with us part time. And so that kind of hit us pretty hard, and so we laid John to rest, and I remember Cinco de Mayo, 2019. I had the day off and I was doing yard work that day and I did a lot of yard work. I was super proud of myself. So I got myself a cigar out and a little bit of bourbon. And I remember sitting there reflecting, on the back patio, about Bohica and John and everything. And, I remember thinking, and I had this feeling come over me that, bad things happen in threes. And I'm like, man, I hope we don't lose that kid. What's going to be the third thing here? And so I went to bed that night and the phone rang at around 9:30 or so. And it was Sergeant Josh Rogers from the police department. And he says, "Hey, I'm just calling to let you know that Lieutenant Wagner just took his life." So he's 38 years old at the time. And he was one of my sergeants. And we're a small department. Remember, we're 40-man department. So
everybody knows everybody.
Everybody knows everybody intimately.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so he said that everything was being taken care of, that I just needed to make sure I, showed up ready for work basically on day shift. I was day shift lieutenant, and obviously I didn't get much sleep that night, but I remember hanging up the phone and thinking, man, we just buried John. How do we, there's no manual or script for this sort of thing. And, why did this happen? And just a lot of questions running through your head. So, I went to work and I did, the best leadership thing I could do, which was to stay focused on the tasks at hand and be an example of resiliency as best I could. But again, there's no manual for that. So that was May 5th. And so May 7th, I'm at work. And again, of course, and my wife calls me and she says, I need you to come home. And I said, what's going on? She said, we lost the baby. And I says, what do you mean? She says, well, she went for checkup and, the baby had died. It was a miscarriage. And so once again, I got in the truck and I went home and, that was like 5 weeks of my life that I had the greatest news ever that we were going to be parents, that we put down our beloved dog, and I lost two dear coworkers. And so, that was my obstacle. And so luckily, my wife and I's fourth wedding anniversary, it was in May of 2019, and we had an Alaskan cruise planned. So we left for Seattle on May 12th. And so we were both feeling different things. I was trying to figure out how I was going to survive, I guess personally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I was even more focused on how I was going to lead, because I knew the guys at the department were hurting, and how I was going to be a good husband to my wife, who was obviously hurting as well. And so, my focus was on overcoming the obstacle. I never had self-pity or never wanted to hurt myself or felt, depressed that it was a hopeless situation. I just needed to figure this out. And so we're up in Skagway, Alaska. The cruise ship comes in the port and we're beautiful up there, Mike, absolutely beautiful. There's a train ride up there.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the gold rush was, where they went up the Golden Staircase. The Chilkoot Trail is up there. So I'm on this train ride and I'm trying to piece everything together, and I'm looking out the window and I'm like, there's this feeling of peace and serenity that came over me. And it's so beautiful there. And I'm like, I need to come back here. And the Chilkoot Trail is nearby. And in my youth, I was Eagle Scout, a Boy Scout, and I used to backpack and hike and camp all the time. And and I'm like, man, this sounds like Dr. Kevin Gilmartin's Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. I used to go backpack, and I used to go camp, and I used to do these things. And so I'm like, man, I'm coming back. And so that's kind of how I got back in the backpacking and camping, was through that train ride that day, where that was going to be how I was going to kind of work my way through this scenario. And so, we get back from the trip and everything. And so my mind's set that I'm going to go backpacking again. And so I start doing that, right? And I book a trip in 2020 to come back to Alaska and do the Chilkoot Trail. COVID hit, and so
a lot of time to think at that point and plan.
Yeah, and so I pivoted, and we went to the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. And I got to be honest with you, it really kicked my butt, and but I had a great time out there, out there in the wilderness. And I just started backpacking, and I would post it on Facebook, and the guys at work would be like, "That looks like it's a lot of fun."
Of course, we always want a challenge.
Yes.
always. Like we just can't go simple. Like, can we just go on a walk around neighborhood? Nah, let's go backpacking.
Mike, this is the perfect mix of physical exertion,
Mm-hmm.
a challenge mentally and physically, um, that can help us heal, that can help us reflect and better respond to things in our environment. So I found this out on my own by being out there, and then I could see these guys. They're getting drawn to it, but they're like, how much is that? And I'm like, well, you got $1,200, $1,500, $2,000 laying around, and they're like, I got a wife and kids. I can't just do that. So I'm starting to think about how maybe I should start a nonprofit. Like how do we get first responders out there? How do we get the gear? And so I start talking about it at work. And in the meantime, I come across this Frontline Freedom. And so they had just started. So I called the CEO up, Dave Brown. He's a captain with the Ohio State Highway Patrol. Him and Josh Eldridge, who was a sergeant with the State Highway Patrol at the time, had just started it, and they have their own stories as to how they got there. But together, they're like, hey, let's do this thing. So, I said, Dave, this is pretty cool what you're doing. He's like, don't start your own, join us. And literally, they were just getting off the ground. So, since then, I've been on board with them, but it was through my own personal journey, the discovery, or I received life as it would be, that I found my purpose, and it helps me heal to this day. It challenges me appropriately. And I got to tell you, Mike, when I take these first responders out, right, they get to the parking lot, right, and they don't know what to expect because most of them haven't been backpacking, and you could see the stress on their face. Not for the journey, but from life, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is we start walking on the trail, and funny things start happening, right? Your mind is like an internet web browser, and there's all these tabs that are open. One tab is your spouse, one tab's the kids, one tab's the bills, one tab's the household responsibilities. I got to mow the grass, I got to fix that, the garage door's broke, whatever the case.
Everything, anything and everything.
Work, yes, everything. And as they start walking, all these tabs start shutting down in their mind. Because why? Well, you got to watch where you're stepping out there, because there's snakes and rocks and roots and mud. And so they start focusing on their steps, and then they're out of breath. Right. So because we're not walking in the park, we're
you got a couple of things you got to worry about. So
now you start worrying about your breathing. And so more tabs. Oh, boom. Couple miles in, I look around and I see smiles, because for the first time in a long time, they're living in the moment. They're living in the present. They're not worrying about what's going to happen, what has happened. And to me, that's a beautiful thing. And that's where that reflection piece comes in, where Marcus Luttrell was talking about. No, you receive and then you reflect, right? Then they start thinking about what's important in life, who they are, who they want to be, their responsibilities in life that are most important to them, family, their friends, taking care of their brothers and sisters, and in both blood and in law enforcement, taking care of each other, getting each other out there, looking out for each other. So there's magic out there in this thing, Mike, and I would actually, I'd invite you to join us sometime. Seriously.
I will. Oh, no worry. As I'm looking at it, I was looking it up a little bit as you were speaking. And for those that are curious, what Frontline Freedom also offers is how do they serve is they have a 3-day expense-free backpacking trips as well as 2-day expense-free. And if you're like, hey, I got a bad back because I've been wearing this duty belt, or, I've had too many donuts at breakfast. They also have fly fishing. So you do have a couple of options there. So, Mike, if somebody was looking to get with you on that, I am going to do it. I mean, I'm all about challenges. I mean, I'm going to Serbia next month just because I just want to see what's out there. I know random trips, I know. But if someone was looking to find you, reach out, get in the Frontline Freedom, or they just want to know more on Mike Slocum, like how would they do that?
Yeah. So, Mike, if you want to learn more about Frontline Freedom, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course our website, frontlinefreedom.org. We invite folks to sign up for our trips. We're an upstart nonprofit, so we're really focused in kind of like the Northeast of the United States.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah, we got to start somewhere. I'm really excited about the future for Frontline Freedom. We're gaining a lot of traction. As you know, the FBI National Academy, we did a hike for them in my session, 289, on the Virginia Triple Crown Appalachian Trail in the Roanoke, Virginia area. They invited us back to do a hike for every NA session coming
That's
through.
big time right there.
That's big time. Yeah.
Yeah, that's big.
We appreciate them and the networking it's going to enable us to spread the word. And we ultimately we'd like to go nationally and provide services, have, so to speak, operations in every state if possible, to get first responders all across the lower 48 and hopefully up into Alaska and Hawaii. That would be great. But we are where we are, and we got to focus on that. And I think we're doing good, and we got great things going there. If you want to connect with me, you can find me on LinkedIn. My own YouTube channel is Foxtrot Adventures. So that's kind of how a part of this got going. Is I started like documenting my own journeys and adventures. Started with the backpacking really. And, I have a camper now, and my wife enjoys going out. So we document all these adventures. And I think it's important that first responders, that we try and live in the moment. And, we ended up losing some more guys. I told you about 2019 and in 2020, we lost a 44-year-old Sergeant Russ Tuttle, pulmonary embolism. And, the following year, we lost more guys, 56-year-old Lieutenant Jerry Lynch and 60-year-old Patrolman Jay Sharp of COVID and cancer-related things.
That's a lot.
So, but I had that base foundation that had, and from 2019 for my path as to how I was going to survive that and help others survive it. And departmentally, it really crushed us. But we're working through it. And a lot of the guys that I work with now come out backpacking and they're huge advocates of it. And we're making a difference.
Yeah. And that's it's important to do that because I tell people I not even know about the backpacking side of it, but I've been hiking, not with a backpack, and it probably hasn't been that intense of what you're talking about. Mine was more like 2 or 3 hours, not like 2 or 3 days, but I can only imagine how great that can feel for your psyche. So with all that in mind, Mike, what final words do you have for our audience?
Okay, I'm gonna go with a quote from Epictetus here. He was a Stoic, right? He says, if you want something good, get it from yourself. And that would be my words to close this out. We all have to take personal responsibility for your journey, the journey outlined, right? Nobody's going to come and save you. Now, I look at Frontline Freedom and I say, we will be your guide on your journey. We will help you, but ultimately it's your journey. And I love the idea of the hero's journey. And, I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
not yet.
First responders, you're heroes and it's your journey. So they call it the hero's journey. And so the story is yours. And with Frontline Freedom, we're here to help you. We'll be a guide on your journey and help you along. But if you want something good, get it from yourself and challenge yourself to be the best version of yourself that you can be.
And that is 100% true. Everybody listening, it always starts from within. Like, I can't force you to do anything. Mike can't force you to do anything. It has to start internally. And if you want to even say, well, I don't want to be selfish. Well, if you don't do it for you, even if you do it for someone else, it still has to start with you. And I know sometimes as servant leaders and being in an industry where we're always used to giving back, we put our own health, physical, mental, spiritual, financial, whatever you want to put in front of that on the back burner for the next person. And when you do that, you don't give that person everything. So getting in programs like Frontline Freedom or connecting with great people like Mike gives you the opportunity to help put yourself back in the front, because we all go through stress. I mean, you heard 5 weeks of Mike's life, and I could tell you, Mike, that's just those 5 weeks alone. I mean, that's not even counting the calls to service you went to. Like, that was just life. I mean, that's the thing that I was talking last night at a conference, and I was telling people, you just don't know what law enforcement has regular life, and then we also have work life, meaning that we're responding to people's incidents as well as our own. So the stressors and the fact that now there's outlets like the backpacking, like, I am serious, I'm going to come check it out. Like, I'm excited. Like, I've been looking at the site, and I'm always down for new challenges. Now, if it's cold, you may not find me that time of the year, because I'm from Texas. I lived in the South all my life, but that doesn't mean that I won't. If you say, hey, I just got to wear like some extra clothes and you got a plan, I'm down. But I'm really it's so cool to see men and law enforcement people just doing stuff like this. So, Mike, I thank you for your time, and I know the audience will gain value from this. For all of you, once again, if you're looking for Mike, Frontline Freedom or LinkedIn, and then obviously Frontline Freedom has the Instagram and all the other socials, but make sure you guys connect and find outlets, guys. Like you said, backpacking is something I wouldn't have thought of, but the cool part about it is the more resources we have, the better. I mean, I went whitewater rafting in Bryson City last month, and whoever knew I'd go whitewater rafting? Like, the water was cold, and if you're not in the cold water, I wouldn't recommend it. But it was, when it came to the concept of like whitewater rafting and backpacking, you were just focused in the moment. So it allowed you to get out of the stress and kind of just enjoy life. Like, those feelings, if you have not done it, and I would tell any listener right now, if you have not done that for yourself, you need to do it right now, because you don't want the stress to catch up to you. Get ahead of it, because in our lives, it's short. You heard some of the people. I mean, suicide at 38. The other guy dying at 54. I mean, I mean, that's real life, and you don't want to spend all your life giving back to others, and then you have nothing to give to yourself, because you do all of this ultimately to feel fulfilled and to hit a calling. But you got to make sure you get to those 70 and 80 year marks, because that's what our life should be. I mean, some of us are in their 90s, and someone who want to get to 100, but I mean, I'll be happy with 70. I mean, just given the lifestyle, I mean, it's just, hey, law enforcement, I'm just happy to get to 70 at this point, but ultimately it's to get there. So, Mike, thank you once again. I know our audience will appreciate this. For all of you that haven't done so, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, notification button. Make sure you follow us. Make sure you share stuff like this. If you've never done backpacking before and you're interested in it, please share this. Let other people know that there's resources like this out there, because we want to spread the message. We want to get these donations up to nonprofits to 20, 30 grand so they can continue to do it and provide free resources for people that have financial hardships, that they need it, they just can't afford it. And that's what foundations like Mike is part of. So once again, thank you guys. We enjoyed you watching it. If you have any questions, reach out. If not, be safe.
You've been listening to the LEO First Podcast. Michael has been in law enforcement since 2005. He's worked for 3 law enforcement agencies in 3 different states. He's a professional speaker who travels the country teaching about leadership development and self-awareness. And he's the author of a book called Greatness Beyond the Badge: The 3 Key Principles for Self-Awareness. It's Michael's passion to bring law enforcement members' stories to the front, so you get the real and raw take. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with Michael on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn at Michael Laidler, on Twitter at Michael A. Laidler, on Facebook at Michael Laidler Leadership. Send an email to michael@michaellaidler.com and hit the website at michaellaidler.com. See you next time on the LEO First Podcast.
Like that, I'm going to be leaving it now. Find vehicle, I think I'm